Hello everyone, it's Valerie from Stampin' with Valerie, and today we are going to be using the Gather Together stamp set, and we are going to also be using the fantastic designer series paper Gilded Autumn. Now this paper is great because it's a specialty paper and it has gold and copper and those sort of accents on it. But anyway, we're going to make a harvest themed card today. We're going to be using the Season of Thanks sentiment. So just so you know, if you want to follow along and get some supplies out, you are welcome to. Also, pause the video whenever you want to, and so you can move on when you're ready for the next step. So the first thing you're going to need are 2 ink pads, Cajun Craze and Early Espresso. Now I'm going to use my matte when I do some stamping because I kind of like the matte even if I'm not doing solid images. I love to use the matte still underneath these photopolymer stamps. Now this is the paper piercing matte, so you can also use it for other things besides just cushioning. So we will start out, we're gonna have a Whisper White card base that is 5.5 wide by 8.5 long, scored in the middle. I'm just going to set that aside for now. We have a couple of pieces of that gorgeous designer series paper. The largest one is 4 inches by 5.25. This second largest one is 3.5 by 4 3/4. And what we're going to do with these two is I'm just going to put some Stampin' Seal on them and going to layer them together. They are going to be the first layer on this card. Now we are going to get into a little bit of fussy cutting today as well, and I'm going to be teaching you a couple different things that I like to do when I'm fussy cutting. A couple things that I haven't shown anyone actually before, so you will be the first to see it. Now I gotta always remember with the Stampin' Seal Plus and the Stampin' Seal Plus, end with your roller at a 90-degree angle. That keeps that adhesive right there at the tip. If you don't, it kind of sometimes gums up. So that's just a helpful little hint. Go ahead and fold your card base in half. Give it a good crease. We need to get that foam mat out of the way to do this card. I don't know why I still had that sitting there. And then just add these to the front of the card. So there's the beginning of your card. Oh, there's colors gorgeous together. That Calypso Coral with that copper foil and very vanilla and Early Espresso on this. Love it. Love it. All right, so now we'll do a little bit of stamping. And what we're going to do is we're going to stamp these little wheat stalks. And we're going to stamp them with Cajun Craze and Early Espresso. But we're going to do each one stamped off. And by stamped off, I mean you're going to stamp it once. And then on the very vanilla, you're just going to stamp it again. And it'll be even lighter. And then go ahead and stamp it a third time. Make a really, really light one. And then do it again with that Cajun Craze. And for now, I'm just going to leave that like that. And I'm going to start with some Early Espresso. Now I need to clean my stamp real quick before I do that. And my chamois is on the other side there. So stamp off that Early Espresso. Actually, you know what? Let's stamp it. No, let's stamp it off every time for Early Espresso because it's really dark. And that way, we've got it quite light on there. Look at how pretty that is even the third time it's stamped. And I think that should be good. I don't think we're going to need any more wheat stalks. I think that will be perfect. Put that over there. And then I think we're done with the Early Espresso. Now we're just going to be working with Cajun Craze. So for this piece of cardstock, we're going to leave it right here for now, for just a minute, because I want to put a piece of ribbon around it. Now, the ribbon that I want to put around it is the Very Vanilla scalloped ribbon, scalloped lace, I think it's called. Let me see. Scalloped lace trim, but I don't want it to be very vanilla. I want it to be a different color. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this here. And now I'm going to give you another little helpful hint. If you're using your paper piercing mat for something like this, you can take just a couple of pins and you can pin it down into your paper piercing mat to hold it in place. That's going to make it easier for you because you don't have to hold it as much. And then just cut it off, because now I know I have enough to go around this and to adhere it to the back. I'm just going to lay it this way so I can have the ribbon coming this way. I'm going to use my Cajun Craze Dark Blend. I guess I should put it this way so you can read it. I'm going to use the brush tip, and I'm going to hold it at this end. But now see, that other end is nice and pinned in place. I'm just going to color this ribbon. Now you can do this with any color that you want. And because I don't need to go all the way to the end, I know I have plenty. I'm just going to leave the ends as Very Vanilla. Now I'm just going to unpin that. We're going to set that aside just for a minute so it dries, because you want it to dry before you start handling it with your fingers, because you will get lots of wonderful Cajun Craze ink on your fingers if you don't. I'm going to set this piece over here even though it's not adhered yet. And I'm going to grab some little pieces that I've already fussy cut. Now what I fussy cut were some of these gorgeous pumpkins that have the gold around them, and there are some gourds in here. I fussy cut some leaves. And as you can see, I get pretty close to those stems, and I'm going to show you how I do that in just a second. Now look at this little tiny piece that I cut. I'm going to hold that up closer so you can see it. This tiny little piece that I fussy cut. That's in a crumb cake. I've got one right here. I'm going to show you how I do it. I've got some other leaves, and we may end up fussy cutting a few more leaves. Not sure yet. We'll see. But I took just from some different designer series papers because this is a fall harvest theme. I figure these are all fall harvest, so they will work great. So to cut one of these little tiny pieces, first, obviously you need really sharp scissors. So the paper snips are great for this. And now to help avoid snipping your fingers, you need a fantastic pair of tweezers. Now we don't sell these. And I can't even remember, these are Tweezer Bee tweezers that my husband bought for me. And they're fantastic because once you grip onto something, you don't have to squeeze it to hold it. So that's why I love these tweezers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move these out of the way so I don't end up with a bunch of little pieces on there. And I hope you can see this where I'm cutting this. So I'm cutting right along that first little stem, and then I'm gonna go right around that little berry. Now, when you're going around things, move your paper, not your scissors. I know I've said that 1,000 times, so I know you know that. And now you're not gonna get, you can, I guess, get directly onto the stem, but I leave just a tiny bit of whisper white there, so it's a little bit thicker. And now just cut off any little pieces that are in your way, because those will really hinder your cutting. Now I'm gonna go around this second little berry, and I'm gonna come really close to that second stem, but I'm just gonna meet up right where I ended that first one. And we've got that little piece of paper there, and sometimes if it doesn't come off right away, just kind of bend it back so you're at the back of your paper and just snip it off right there. And then you don't have to worry about accidentally snipping off that other stem that you have right there. Now, I'm going to just quickly go around this leaf on the right-hand side. And here's where the little tweezers come in. Because trying to hold on to this, or hold on to this tiny leaf and cut around this second piece here, sometimes you can get a little bit close to your fingers. So I take my tweezers, drop in my pieces. I take the tweezers, open them up, and I hold on to some of that, part of that somewhere. Like right now, I'm gonna hold on to that leaf because that's the biggest piece that we have on here. And you have to kind of angle it however you want to hold on to it. And now I'm gonna cut around that little piece. And I didn't have to get anywhere near my fingers. Now, you're gonna let go of it because now I'm far enough away from where I need to cut that I can just snip that little piece. And again, bend it back if it's not coming all the way off. Actually, it just came off when I bent it back. And then you have just that super cute little fussy cut piece. Now, it takes a lot of practice. This is not just something you're just gonna be able to do unless you really have good dexterity with your cutting already. So work up to it. Start with bigger things like these leaves. These are bigger. If you've got other designer series paper that you have bigger pieces on, start with those and then work your way up. All right, so for this piece, I want that ribbon that is now dried. Now you will notice once it dries, it's a little bit stiff. But once you move it around, it'll go back to being nice and pliable. Because I'm going to be adhering this directly to the card now, I'm going to add some adhesive all the way around here. And then I'm going to get that ribbon right where I want it. And now I can cut just a little bit of that off on each end. I don't need quite that much, so I probably could have actually not even colored quite this much. So just take your ribbon, adhere it back to that Stampin' Seal or Stampin' Seal Plus, whichever one you are using. And now it's already adhered to your card. Now I like to just go over it again with that adhesive, just to make sure it's got some adhesive on the back of the lace as well. And then just adhere it down. Perfect, right? That looks kind of cute. So now we've got all of these pumpkins and all these other little pieces that I've already cut out, because it would have taken me forever to just cut these out while you all were watching. But what I want to do with some of these pumpkins, and I did it with this one, and you may be able to tell, I used some Cajun Craze ink on it and a sponge to darken it up a little bit. And this is also where these little tweezers come in handy, because you can hold down, now there, I made it just a little bit darker. You can sponge that Cajun Craze over them without getting it on your fingers, because we want some of these just to be a little bit darker so we have a little bit of extra dimension in the card. So I'm going to stamp a few of these, or color a few of these, sorry, with this Cajun Craze. Super easy with the sponge daubers. Let them dry for a couple minutes. And as we go, I may decide to do a couple more, but right now I'm just gonna stick with those. And now these leaves are gonna come into play. They're gonna be kind of fillers. So what I wanna do with my first layer of pumpkins, and I'm gonna go all the way to the edge of this houndstooth pattern here. So I've got a couple of pumpkins that were right on the edge of the designer series paper that I cut, so they have a straight edge on them, so they are just going to be right on that edge, and I'm just going to use Tombow glue to glue them down. They're going to be our starting point for our harvest card with our squash and pumpkins. And now they don't have to be exactly in line with each other. See how this one is just a little bit above the bottom of that Very Vanilla. This one is right at the bottom of the Very Vanilla, because we're going to kind of stagger them anyway. So then take some of your other little pumpkins and we can start adding them in. Now the great thing about having the glue is we don't have to push them all the way down to start with. I've got a couple of squash that had edges cut off or bottoms cut off. Those can be fit right in the background area. So I'm going to actually put that one on this side, kind of in the background, because it's going to be covered. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put one of those darker ones in there. Now I'm just going to lay a couple out before we go any further and see if this is how I want them. For that first layer, this one, we might actually put a couple of these gourds right next to each other because this one is missing a little bit on the right hand side, and that way it can go right there. Because our second layer, we're going to add some dimensionals to them. And I love all the different shapes and sizes that are in these pumpkins and gourds. And now, you know, if you've ever seen a pile of pumpkins or, like I say, these gourds, you know that they are just all different shapes, all different sizes. They're kind of laying sideways in this way and that way, but we're going to kind of try to make ours all stand up a little bit. All right, let me grab some mini dimensionals because I think that's what we will start with for these. I'm going to start with one of these little pumpkins that I put that extra Cajun Craze ink on. I'm going to kind of put it right there so it's kind of in front of those pumpkins. That gourd is going to look kind of really pretty right there. Now, this is where you just play around with it. Once you get that first layer down, you just have to kind of play around with it. And like I said, we are going to use some of these leaves and things as fillers, so this doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Yeah, let's add that gourd in there. And what I'm going to do with that one is I'm only going to put a dimensional at the top of it because it's going to kind of slide in a little bit behind that pumpkin, but then it will be raised up at the top. And as you can see, we already have some great dimension on there. If I turn it sideways, you can see how things are kind of popping out and looking really cute. All right, this one I'm gonna go ahead and color. Again, you can use tweezers, you can use your take your pick tool like I'm using right now, because I just decided that one needed some of that extra color on it. And now if you're like me, go ahead and do all your fussy cutting ahead of time. Have it done. Then you don't have to worry about it. You've already taken care of it. And then you can just work on putting your card together. Now, of course, if you're going through and you decide, oh man, I really want, you know, something extra here, then fussy cut out some extra stuff. But I think this is perfect, which if you can have things cut out ahead of time. All right, we're only going to need a half of one of those mini dimensionals up here on the top of this little gourd. And you know how small those mini dimensionals are already, so cutting one in half is not always an easy feat. but hopefully I didn't just stick my face in the camera there. And then we'll put one more right there, I think. And then we'll fill in with a few of these little leaves. Now we've already got those great, fantastic wheat stalks in the background. That kind of fills in a little bit, which I think is fantastic. But look at, I've already cut some of these, so won't it be fun just to add some of these in some places? Let's see how they look. If they don't look right, then we won't do it. I actually kind of think these ones look right because they already kind of look like a little bit like wheat stalks. So these would be good. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue and just kind of stick them in there wherever you have a little space that you can stick one, and kind of let it kind of curve it a little bit so it stays standing up. And probably some of these little ones will fit in here really well too. These little ones that have those berries that I showed you how to cut. Let's see if we can fit some of those in somewhere. Well, I don't know, they don't quite look right. But I do like the way these little wheat stalk looking ones are. If I can get some more glue out. After my glue's been standing up because I had it laying down for so long, or tipped upside down for so long, that now when it's standing up, it's all the glue's running back down to the bottom. All right, get it in there. Push it down with take your pick tool. And I'm thinking we may have to cut a couple more of these so we can put some more in there. Because I'm just not feeling the other leaves so much that I cut out. What a shame, because those were cute. All right, so let me grab that paper. And now these are so simple and easy to cut out. So just cut right along that stem. You're just gonna kind of cut straight down the side, you know, right around them, around the side, straight. You don't have to like curve in and out of all those little leaves. And then once you get that piece off, kind of do the same. Just kind of cut straight down that side. Cut the edge. And then you can cut that little stem. And it doesn't have to be the entire stem. You can cut it off after just a little bit, just so you have a little bit of a stem to glue. I'm gonna put this guy right here by this pumpkin. I'm thinking maybe 2 more and we should be good. So I'm gonna get this one here. And then I see one over here that I already cut, that I missed when I was looking, but it doesn't have a stem on it, and that's okay because I can just hide it behind, because we don't necessarily need the stem. So we've got this little one here, and I kind of feel like he can go right behind there. And we've got one over here. Maybe we'll just bring we'll put him in. Where do we want to put him? Maybe we'll just put him behind that one. I'm feeling off. I feel like I need to be symmetrical, like I need another little piece for the other side after I just dropped it on my card. Now, got a little bit of glue on my card there, so I'm just gonna grab a tissue and just wipe that glue up before it dries. This guy needs a little bit of glue on him before he can go behind that pumpkin. And I feel like I need another one of these, even if it's without a stem. I'm looking for my scissors and they're right in front of my face. We're just gonna go for this one right here. Again, just cut down the side as close as you can to those little leaves without cutting them off. I guess we don't really need a stem for this one because we're shoving it right underneath that edge anyway. And we're we're kind of just doing this for some symmetry. So I'm gonna cut a little bit off from him because he's a little bit long. Add him in. And he should be good. I love that. I think that's fantastic. Now, if I was really being for symmetry, I would put another one right here, but I kind of like it like that. So I'm gonna leave it like that. Now, one more thing that I want to add in, because I like lots of fluff, as you know, and this is something I don't think I've done in a video either. You see how on these little edges we can just cut some of this off because we don't really necessarily need it. Cut a super duper skinny piece. Look at how tiny that is. We'll cut one more right here. And I'll just cut one more right there. Now they don't all have to be the exact same width, but as long as they're all similar, that's fine. They don't have to be the same length because we can cut them off. Now you have that tiny little piece and you have your take your pick tool. Now you can use this. It's kind of fat for what I want to do, but if you have one of the old paper piercing tools, or if you have something else that's super skinny, use that. We are going to wrap this around. And I've done this on other projects in the past that were not Stampin' Up! Related, when I had made some albums and different things. And I love how they turn out. You just end up with these gorgeous little curlicues. And now this would not be a card you would put in the mail, because if you want these gorgeous little curlicues to survive, mailing is not really an option. Just take them all the way around. And I wanted to do some of these because we had the pumpkins on here, and you know, when pumpkins grow, they have those little curlicue vines. And I thought this would be pretty, maybe with a couple of these glued on here somewhere. So let's see what we got. It's kind of hard to see them from where you're at, but they are there. Let me flip this one around this way. Maybe it'll show up better with that very vanilla. And of course, this one was a pretty long one, so I'm not gonna use all of it. I'll cut some of it off. But it's easiest if you have a little piece that can be stuck underneath something, like underneath the edge of the gourd here, or underneath the pumpkin, that you can put your glue on that part. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put, before I squish this, and I already did start squishing it when I was trying to open the glue. And all you got to do is just re-wrap it around. Now, of course, if your recipient gets it and they ruin their curlicue, they can try to fix it while it's still attached to the card, but not sure if it would actually work, but they could try. All right, so just take your little curlicue, slide it underneath something. Hold it down. And if it's a little bit longer than what you want, just trim it off. Now, I wasn't trying to make that, you know, a part of the pumpkin curlicue. I was just trying to get it underneath here to stick. But now it's kind of stuck near the stem of the pumpkin. So that's actually kind of perfect because it looks like it's coming out from the pumpkin. All right, so our next one we already made, and I'm gonna stretch it out just a little bit, because you can stretch them out after you've made them as well. Go ahead and put a little bit of Tombow glue on that. Again, my poor glue. And I'm going to add this one kind of just underneath this gourd, I think, to have it poking out from underneath this gourd. So then we got that curlicue popping out. I'm gonna hold it there for a second so it'll stay and dry. kind of want it popping up like that, so I might have to hold it for a second. There we go. I'm going to move it closer so you can see it's kind of going over that other stem right there. Then we have this third one that we didn't hook in yet. Sometimes they're not the easiest little things to pick up. Just going to stretch this one end out because I love, it's so thin. I love the way this end looks where it's kind of a little bit longer. So I want to stretch this other end out just a little bit. And that's where I'm going to put the glue, is on this end. That's actually quite a bit of glue. I might take some of that off on a tissue over here. And then I'm just going to add that literally right by this big pumpkin. So this one actually looks like it's coming off from this pumpkin. Now I kind of flattened it out. Let's get it on there. Let it dry a little bit. All right, I will take some good close-up photos of this so you can see it better. And if you're watching the video now, you've probably already seen it on the blog post. And if you haven't, if you're just watching this video straight from YouTube, go to my blog post. I have the link in the description, and you can see the photos of these up close. Now this curly Q is a little bit wider. You might be able to see it a little bit better. Hold this up there. Oh, there's pretty. I love them. It just adds just a little bit something to the card, something a little bit different that I don't think a lot of people have ever done. I don't know. Maybe I invented it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm just making that up, but I really have never seen this done before, but that doesn't mean someone else hasn't done it. So I'm not going to just say, yes, I created this without knowing that for sure, because there could be someone out here who's been doing this for 20 years that I don't know about. All right, we're going to add this one right to this pumpkin here. I'm going to hold it down. Luckily, once that glue dries, it's clear. So there we have, that's basically our fluff for this card. So I really, really love that. All right, so let's get our sentiment ready. We are going to use the Label Me Lovely punch, and we're gonna punch in Very Vanilla. We're gonna go ahead and go around the edges with some Cajun Craze. We're just gonna sponge that around the edges, just to give it a little bit of a frame around it. I'm gonna set that down and let that dry just a little bit while I grab the sentiment. And the sentiment is Season of Thanks. I'm gonna stamp that right in the center. I'm going to use some dimensionals on the back of this. And I think I want to go just above that ribbon because I want it touching that ribbon. So I'm going to put a dimensional to hold that ribbon in place. And then I'm going to put a dimensional right at the top of this tag, one on each side. And then that bottom one will just fit right on there when we get that on there. I want to add a couple of gems on here, and I was thinking about using the Gilded gems because I just love them, and I think they will add a really pretty touch to this card. Even though we already have lots of sparkle, this will add just a little bit more. Oop, those are some big ones. We've got some small ones. Let's see if we've got a medium one on here. I'm gonna take that medium one, put that one on there first, and then one of these small ones. And I love to put two next to each other. I do that on a lot of my projects. I don't know why, I just think it looks great. We'll put another medium one over here. I don't know if I need a small one there yet. I almost think up here with Season of Thanks, a couple of leaf stems might be pretty. So maybe I'll add a couple of leaf stems up here. And then I can do one of these gorgeous gems right here. Like I told you, this is definitely a fluff card. It is definitely a fall harvest themed, with lots of fall harvest in there and lots of Cajun craze. Take these other leaves, and these are again some that I fussy cut earlier. Just to add a little bit of glue on those stems. Stick them in there so that way the leaves kind of stick up a little bit. Did I use all the small ones? Nope, I have one more. I'll throw one right there. We've got a little piece of curlicue that we cut off that we don't need right there. And I think that's gonna do it for this card. Now, this card was, looks a little bit different than I expected it to. I wasn't expecting to use all those pumpkins that I used. I thought, oh, I'm just gonna use a few of them and it'll be okay. But I really actually kind of like the way it turned out because it just looks like a fun little pumpkin patch. It's got all of that gold in there and it just is sparkly and beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this video, and like I said, if you are right here on YouTube and you saw it first here, head over to my blog post and I can give you some other tips and tricks in there, and if you want to read up about the stamp set and all of that, the information will be there. And I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you and bye.